Today we're peeling back the layers on a quarter you've likely handed over at the coffee shop dozens of times, yet might never have guessed holds a hidden fortune. The 1982 Washington quarter. While most of these coins quietly spin in your pocket, a few select pieces carry quirks and errors that can send their value soaring into the hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars. Stick around, because the story of how a routine pocket change can transform into a prized collector's treasure is more surprising than you might expect. Cast your mind to 1982. Ronald Reagan sat in the Oval Office. Eye of the Tiger was blasting from every boombox, and the United States Mint was hard at work striking Washington quarters at 3 different facilities. Between Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, over 1 billion of these coins rolled off the presses. On the surface, they look identical. George Washington's dignified profile on the obverse, and America's bald eagle clutching arrows on the reverse. But in the intricate world of coin collecting, small variations can carry massive premiums. Let's start at the beginning. The 1982 quarter came into being as part of the ongoing Washington Quarter series that started in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's bicentennial birth anniversary. Designed by John Flanagan, his portrait of Washington had become instantly recognizable and beloved by coin enthusiasts. By the early 1980s, the Mint was still using Flanagan design, but experimenting with new alloys in their other denominations. Although the quarter stayed untouched by alloy changes, the sheer volume of coins struck meant tiny die imperfections and production mishaps would inevitably occur. While most 1982 quarters circulate without fanfare, a handful of minting errors caught the sharp eyes of numismatists. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1982 Die Obverse, where the die used to strike the portrait inadvertently impressed a secondary, slightly offset image of Washington's profile. This creates what looks like a faint shadow doubling at the date and around the lettering. When perfectly struck and preserved, these coins can command as much as $150 to $300 in certified grade MS65, and rarer, top-graded examples have crossed $500 at auction. Transitioning from doubling to mint marks, another rarity hides in plain sight. The 1982 No. S. Mint Mark Proof Quarter. In the proof sets issued by San Francisco that year, nearly every quarter proudly bore the tiny S beneath the wreath. But a small batch escaped the minting process without that hallmark. Today, certified proof no mint mark specimens in PF69 condition can reach $1,200 or more among dedicated proof collectors, thanks to the thrill of finding what was never meant to leave the mint. Beyond these headline errors, the 1982 series hosts a roster of minor die cracks, off-center strikes, and clipped planchets that each tell their own story. A die crack might show up as a raised line snaking across Washington's cheek or trailing from the eagle's wing. Collectors prize these for their individuality. No 2 die cracks are exactly the same, and coins with dramatic, eye-catching cracks can fetch $20 to $50 in lightly circulated grades, even more in mint state. Of course, tracking down these errors is only half the battle. Once you've identified a curious piece, understanding its market value hinges on condition. In about uncirculated grades, 50 to 58 Australian dollars, most error quarters sit comfortably under $20, but slip into the mint state realm, MS60 and above, and values climb steeply. A well-centered double die obverse in MS63 might trade around $100, while a flawless MS67 specimen could soar past $350, thanks to its sharp details and pristine surfaces. To put that in perspective, consider a standard 1982 D quarter in average circulated condition. It's essentially face value, talismanic only for parking meters. Yet the same coin, if certified by PCGS or NGC in MS67, transforms from pocket change into a serious investment, sometimes touching $400 at live auctions. That's a potential 1,500-fold jump in value, all thanks to minting luck and careful preservation. But what drives collectors to hunt these variations? Part of the allure is the story behind each error. The idea that a single slip in a finely tuned industrial process can birth a one-of-a-kind artifact. One famous tale tells of a San Francisco mint technician who spotted a proof quarter missing its S mint mark, but, thinking it a defective trial strike, returned it to a storage box. Decades later, that coin resurfaced in an estate sale, sold for a modest $50, and then leapt to $1,500 once authenticated, thrilling both buyers and sellers. Turning to raw market data, auction records for 1982 quarter errors show consistent demand. Over the past 5 years, at least a dozen certified double dies have crossed the $300 mark, with top specimens breaking $500 in high-profile sales. Meanwhile, no mint mark proofs remain scarcer still. Fewer than 25 graded examples exist as of 2025, and each one triggers competitive bidding whenever one appears on the block. All this begs the question, how can you, right now, spot potential treasure among your spare change? First, examine the date and mint mark area under magnification. Look for any hint of doubling around the numerals or letters, or a missing mint mark altogether. Next, check for odd lines or raised ridges. Those are die cracks. Finally, note the centering and rim condition. Well-centered, fully rimmed coins in brilliant surfaces win the highest grades and the highest prices. Condition is king. A heavily circulated quarter with patches of wear might still excite a beginner, but seasoned collectors know that eye appeal and the potential for grading upgrades. Pivot on those untouched details. Eye-clean surfaces, bold strike quality, and original mint luster can elevate a common error to a top-tier collectible. Even a slight discoloration or spot can knock a coin off the MS-65 pedestal down into the MS-63 terrain, slashing its market value by half. If you're ready to dive in, consider creating a simple coin board, pockets labeled for double Die Obverse, missing mint mark, die crack, and so on. Spend an afternoon rolling through your 1982 Washington quarters, setting aside any oddities. When you find a candidate, snap high-resolution photos, front and back, and submit them to an online grading community or local dealer for a preliminary opinion. If it shows real promise, professional grading will be your gateway to the auction block. Before we wrap up this segment, it's worth noting that the 1982 quarter's appeal extends beyond mere dollar signs. Each error piece connects us to the human element behind coin production. The die maker's imperceptible tremor, the press operator's split-second oversight, the mint's decision to continue production despite anomalies. These coins aren't just valuable. They're storytellers carrying whispers from the heart of America's minting machinery. As we shift gears to the next featured quarter, keep in mind that the thrill of discovery doesn't end here. If a single 1982 quarter can harbor such fascinating errors, imagine what surprises lie in other years. Up next, we'll explore the quirks of the 1991 Washington quarter, an issue of its own share of hidden rarities and market-moving misprints. Stay tuned to uncover how another seemingly ordinary coin can become a prized centerpiece in any advanced collector's trove. Picking up where we left off, the 1991 Washington quarter might seem even more innocuous than its 1982 cousin. After all, fewer error headlines have circulated about it. But beneath its familiar profile lie subtle quirks and unexpected rarities that dedicated collectors have learned to spot. As the early 90s ushered in fresh energy at the U.S. Mint, small production tweaks and human variables combined to create today's most sought-after 1991 varieties. Back in 1991, George H.W. Bush led the nation. The first Gulf War dominated headlines, and pop culture was singing along to "Everything I Do It for You." At the Philadelphia and Denver mints alone, over 600 million quarters were struck, with a modest proof run at San Francisco adding to the total. John Flanagan Classic Portrait continued without alteration, yet each die press carried its own fingerprint, tiny imperfections that, when preserved, would later fuel a collector's frenzy. The most famous 1991 rarity hides in plain sight, the 1991 S proof quarters reverse cameo effect. While collecting proofs often revolves around mirrored fields and frosted devices, a small subset of 91 S quarters exhibit such deep mirror-like surfaces on the eagle's feathers and ribbons that they appear almost cameo-like. When first discovered by a proof enthusiast examining a brand new set, these specimens fetched modest premiums. Today, certified PR69 DCM examples regularly trade in the $200, $350 range, and the rare PR70 DCM has broken $600 at specialized auctions. Yet Cameo contrast is only the tip of the iceberg. Harder to find, and substantially more lucrative, is the 1991 Philadelphia double Die Obverse. A misalignment during hubbing produced faint, parallel lines around Washington's hair strands and the word liberty. Early reports estimated only a few thousand of these double dies were in circulation before the mint replaced the defective hub. For those lucky enough to hold a high-grade example, the payoff can be astonishing. MS65 specimens often command $300, $450 at major auction houses, and a flawless MS67 has reached $200 in private sales. While doubling errors bring headline-grabbing price tags, another category of sought-after anomalies comes from missing or repunched mint marks. A handful of 1991 D quarters show a lightly punched mint mark that was then repunched slightly to the northeast. Collectors refer to these as RPM, repunched mint mark, varieties, and the faint, secondary impression can be seen under magnification. Certified RPMD examples in MS64 can fetch $75, $125, with top-graded coins in MS66 climbing above $250. The story of one particularly dramatic RPMD specimen underscores the thrill of field hunting. A collector visiting a coin show in Ohio traded 50 common 1991 D quarters for a beat-up roll that looked promising. Inside, under a loop's gaze, a single quarter bore the telltale twin D impressions. After professional grading, it sold for $800, far more than the collector had spent on the entire roll, illustrating the high-stakes excitement that drives advanced numismatists. Beyond doubling and mint mark mishaps, the 1991 quarter series hosted its share of die cracks and planchet issues. One notable variety shows a prominent die crack running from the top rim down through Washington's nose. These cracked die coins appeal to variety collectors who relish tracking each unique fracture line. Even in circulated grades, bold die cracks can trade for $20, $40. In mint state, an uncorroded MS63 specimen might bring $100 or more. Planchet anomalies are rarer still. On extremely rare occasions, mint workers fed a small batch of planchets intended for the $50 or Kennedy token through the quarter press. These oversized or underweight planchets produced quarters with off-spec weights and thicknesses. Detecting such an oddity requires a precision scale and calipers, but certified wrong planchet 1991 quarters have sold privately for thousands, often 10 times the value of typical die errors, because they defy categorization and embody true minting miracles. Assessing market value for these errors demands a nuanced understanding of condition. In grades below MS60, doubling and RPM quarters might retail under $50, but once you cross into the mint state spectrum, values accelerate sharply. A near-flawless MS65 double die can sell for 3 figures, and a perfect MS67 can quadruple that amount. For cameo proofs, the difference between PR69 and PR70 can be a $200 swing in prices, reflecting the collector community's obsession with perfection. Auction records over the past decade validate these trends. Heritage Auctions reported a 1991 P double die obverse in MS66 selling for $100 in 2018, then again in 2023 for $350, demonstrating steady appreciation. Similarly, a PCGS-graded PR70 DCM cameo-proof quarter hit $750 at Stack's Bowers in 2022, more than double its value just 5 years earlier. Such consistency underlines the continued demand for high-grade 1991 errors among seasoned collectors. But why does the 1991 quarter series command such fervor? Part of the answer lies in scarcity. Fewer collectors focused on Washington quarters at the time, so early reports of errors circulated slowly. This meant many error coins remained hidden in rolls, only to be uncovered decades later by modern searchers. The element of delayed discovery amplifies the thrill for today's enthusiasts, who know they're unearthing hidden history rather than chasing overheated markets. The human side of minting adds another layer of intrigue. One anecdote recalls a mint-quality inspector who noticed irregularities on a handful of proof quarters but deemed them minor enough to include in customer sets. He tucked a few away as mementos. A colleague later found them during a cleanout and sold them at face value to unwitting cashier staff. Those coins eventually became the legendary circus proof samples, prized not for their perfection, but for the unlikely circumstances that carried them from the vault to circulation. To spot potential 1991 treasures, start by sorting through rolls under strong lighting. Use a 10x loop to examine the areas around Liberty, the date, and the mint mark. Look for shadowy doubling or faint secondary mint impressions. For proofs, tilt the coin gently to assess the depth of mirror fields and frosted devices. True deep cameo proofs will catch the light in a way that ordinary proofs do not. And don't overlook weight checks. A precision scale can uncover wrong planchet anomalies that the naked eye will miss. Condition remains the decisive factor. Even a minor hairline scratch or spot can demote a coin from MS66 to MS64, dramatically affecting its value. Seasoned collectors often describe coin grading as the ultimate game of margins. The slim line between eye appeal and visible flaw can be worth hundreds of dollars. That's why storing coins in inert holders and handling them only with gloves or tongs is more than just numismatic etiquette. It's a critical step in preserving potential value. As you build your collection, consider joining specialized online forums or local exonumia clubs. Posting high-resolution images of candidate errors can garner invaluable feedback from veteran collectors before you invest in third-party grading. Many experienced hobbyists are happy to share tips on detecting doubling varieties or recognizing the subtle luster cues of deep cameo proofs. Looking at recent market data, sales of high-grade 1991 double dies have nearly doubled in average price over the last 10 years, while cameo proofs show a 150% increase in top-end auction results. Wrong planchet pieces remain the kingmakers, with one singular example trading for $2,500 in 2024 after stirring a bidding war among 5 collectors. These figures underscore a broader trend. Small-town finders and garage sale hunters can still uncover high-value coins that major dealers overlooked. Soon, we'll wrap up by weaving together the tales of the 1982 and 1991 quarters, reflecting on the broader lessons they teach about chance, craftsmanship, and the enduring allure of mint errors. But before that, take some time to explore your current holdings, apply the techniques we've discussed, and see what hidden treasures might be waiting in your own rolls.